Professor Swarn Singh, School of International Studies, JNU, joining us this evening on World Today. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the show. First things first, as the world leaders in G20 deliberate, what's the biggest dilemma that they face, as they sit across and discuss Afghanistan?
Clearly, the biggest dilemma for any international effort to provide humanitarian aid to Afghanistan, which is actually needed very, very urgently, is how to provide it on the ground. If Taliban, which is not recognized by any of the countries so far, is the route through which aid is provided, there is a general suspicion that the aid would be perhaps distributed in a very, very discriminatory fashion, and it could actually be counterproductive actually. So in that sense, I think the urgency of the matter here is how international agencies can be allowed to operate inside Afghanistan, how they can be provided safety and security so that there is a certain trust in how that aid has to be provided to the humanitarian crisis emerging in Afghanistan. There is no dearth of enthusiasm. If you notice, soon after UN General Secretary talking about aid of about 600 million required to be provided through United Nations, several countries have come up and made offers to donate money. And likewise, the G20 meeting, which is ongoing, as you just mentioned, has already seen European Union pledging 1 billion euro. So there is no problem of international community willing to step in and deal with this catastrophe in the making, where 1.5 million, according to UNICEF, children below 5 are malnourished. There is drought on the ground, which has got worsened. There is little healthcare available, cash is not available, banks are closed. So world understands the challenges that lie, and therefore the fear of onslaught of refugees going out of Afghanistan, etc. So the voice which is so far coming out of this G20 leaders summit is to say that we need to make sure that the aid actually goes to where they want to send it, and of course leads to ensuring that the terrorism is controlled and countered, is not allowed to spread. People are allowed to be free inside Afghanistan to access amenities and aid which is being provided, which is to be provided to them. And of course, in the long run, it doesn't lead to any chaos in Afghanistan. So I think the critical question here is how to make sure that Taliban can facilitate simply providing security to international agencies led by United Nations, which should be able to directly provide aid to the needy people on the ground. And I think that is the fundamental challenge, how to resolve that. And of course, very quickly, European Union also has this meeting, which I think includes United Nations, United States, European Union, which have also had sanctions on Taliban. I think there is certain consensus to be built on that, how to deal with that issue of whether those needs to be sort of lowered, how that can basically be what we call a smarter designed kind of sanctions, which do not it's a kind of a deal with the Afghan people on the ground, but only punish the elite and the leadership in that sense. So smart sanctions, I think, is something which need to be also further fine-tuned. But I think the crisis is in the making, and the world community understands. That is why you see one after another, US meeting them in Doha on Sunday, Monday UN Secretary General calling a conference, and today this conference of G20 countries, which are actually the top 20 economies which are going to contribute if any aid and assistance is thought of. And it's a surprise, but I think it's the reports are that Russia and China have not sent their top leaders to this conversation, which I think is a very, very negative indication. I'm not sure how far it is true. But then that makes India the only neighbor which is part of G20, not having a territorial boundary because Pakistan has occupied Kashmir. But India becomes the immediate neighbor, which is kind of, I think, the country which has to be heard as to how the repercussions for the region, which are very significant, need to be taken note of. And India has repeatedly said spread of terrorism is something which India wants to underline, spread of drug trade needs to be underlined, and basic freedoms of people, minorities, women, or human rights, basically. How that has to be kind of guaranteed by Taliban, which is again, I think, something which need to be stressed, and India would have a quite of an emphatic voice on that subject because the other two neighbors apparently perhaps are missing in this summit meeting. So I assume that international community is really waking up, is very hyperactive in ensuring that the catastrophe doesn't really blow up in Afghanistan. And I assume Taliban has to understand that if there is any collapse of the system, it's only Taliban which is going to lose whatever they have gained. So it is also in their interest to make sure that international community, when it is willing to provide aid on the ground, is also allowed to send international agencies, United Nations agencies, to work on the ground directly. This is not the first case where international agencies will go in a catastrophic situation directly and work with the people without intervening state doing anything with them. So there are examples, and Taliban will not be kind of doing this for the first time. So Taliban has to simply be enabler to allow and ensure safety of these international donor agencies coming and working in Afghanistan. Many of them were already working there, so they have a great experience of working on the ground. It's not that they are not knowing the ground situation. So they will be, I think, they will kind of touch the ground running in that sense if Taliban is allowing that facilitation. So I think it's also good for Taliban to really reciprocate the way international community is coming up and saying, we are pledging aid and we want to make sure humanitarian crises are controlled in Afghanistan. The onus now lies on Taliban to really allow these international agencies to work on the ground.
Do you see that a possibility, considering what transpired in Taliban, what transpired in Doha during the talks? Can Taliban be trusted, to walk the talk, especially when it comes to promises that they make?
I understand in any international negotiations, it's always the same case that parties, when they come out of negotiations, they have slightly different interpretations of what happened on the ground. So that is normal. I'm also much more confident of the top leadership of Taliban trying to kind of play and use the language which would make them slightly agreeable to the international community. My fear is whether they control the cadre on the ground. And that is the fear, because even if top leadership is willing to use certain polite languages and saying, okay, fine, we are agreeable, we want to sort of do things the way international community would like us to do, maybe heart of heart, they don't trust these things. So far, their track record is not really trustworthy. But my bigger fear is factions within Taliban and Haqqani network, then of course guests from outside that keep dropping into Afghanistan. Even if top leadership today says that Daesh is their enemy, but that's not true how we have seen in the past. So in that sense, the chaos is allowing a lot of unwanted elements and unwanted actions. We are seeing violence on the ground. There was rumors of Mullah brothers' death, and all kind of things are coming up. So that chaos and that disorganization on the ground is my greater fear. The cadre on the ground needs to be kept in control, so that when international agencies go out and provide necessary help required, they don't end up receiving any harm to themselves.
Okay, what does Prime Minister Narendra Modi bring to the table in this virtual summit today? Does he go ahead and reiterate what he said in the SCO summit, or does he bring something new to the table as he meets the G20 leaders?
As I said, that in case it is true that President Xi Jinping and President Vladimir Putin have not joined the G20 summit, that makes India the most influential voice in this meeting in that sense, because India is the immediate largest neighbor. And India has our own concerns, and therefore I think India's interventions will be very genuine, because the repercussions that India could have and has had in the past would make India very engaged, and therefore India would be willing to ensure that chaos and kind of civil war situation doesn't happen. There are news reports that the cash is not available, health services are in trouble, even food shortages are on the ground, and that would lead to kind of exodus of people from Afghanistan and India in the neighborhood. We have a good number of Afghan people in India already. We have students in our universities, and they could be the channels for further people to come up to sort of find any way out of Afghanistan in that sense. If the food is not available, if the life is in danger. So in that sense, India is the largest neighboring country, and of course, an influential economy in that sense. We have had our track record of providing a lot of aid to Afghanistan on the ground earlier as well. So India's voice, therefore, I think is going to be fairly emphatic as to how G20 wants to sort of move into Afghanistan. India has made it very clear, and that's a standard position India has had for, since post-independence. In fact, that we want to see United Nations leading the effort. So United Nations should be on the lead in case international agencies have to move into Afghanistan and provide immediate aid. India would be happy to be part of those international efforts running through United Nations. And in that sense, that brings great credibility to India's voice in G20, other than the fact that we would also be happy to perhaps contribute in terms of financial, technical, and other manpower contributions to ensuring that the humanitarian situation doesn't get worsens there. In any case, India's voice has lately become much more visible. You mentioned of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, CSTO outreach meeting on Afghanistan, where again Indian Prime Minister spoke in detail. what are India's concerns, what are India's views on how things should be tackled on the ground. And of course, again in Washington, D.C., I'm sure this was one of the issues discussed between leaders who were meeting there either as Quad or in bilateral meetings. So in that sense, I assume that India is the real country which has suffered from terrorism for several decades now, and that India's both experience and voice in G20 will be heard very clearly. And India would always underline the fact that we need to distinguish between Taliban and Afghan people on the ground, because that is a requirement right now, and many countries are already doing that. Okay. Even the closest friend of Taliban, Pakistan, has not recognized Taliban so far. So there is a unanimity on that subject that nobody, even their friends, so-called friends, can afford to recognize Taliban. And if Taliban understands what it means, then they have to agree to allowing UN-led international agencies to come and rescue the situation on the ground. And already one after another countries are making offers and commitments. Meetings are taking place, whether it is in New York at the United Nations or it is in a G20 meeting today as we are talking. So there is no lack of commitment of international community, and that includes India as well. And Taliban has no choice but to now allow. They may not like it. They may be thinking of a very different way of using this aid, but that's not going to happen. They will have to accept that aid will go directly to the people on the ground through international agencies, which have already been working on the ground, so they are very familiar and they know how to operate on the ground. And in that sense, I think it is time for Taliban to take a step forward in staying in Kabul if they wish to. Otherwise, they could be only raising that whole groundswell worldwide. That whatever it takes, they have to be removed. And you remember there is a doctrine called responsibility to protect, and it was invoked in 2011 against Libya. We don't want to see that kind of situation happening here. So I hope some kind of wisdom will dawn upon Taliban leadership, and that they will show also great control on their cadres on the ground. That is a significant challenge for Taliban, other than simply making commitments at international level, that their cadres and factions are kept in leash, and therefore international community will go and help the situation, which is really a ticking time bomb in that sense. If you believe how reports are coming of what is happening inside Afghanistan. And that, I think, is a moment of opportunity for Taliban to show up that they really mean business and that they can deliver on the promises they are making, so that they can really rectify the track record they have had, because that is the only way people will begin to trust them. So far, there is a complete trust deficit, and therefore no country so far has dared to recognize or thought of recognizing them, even if there is an increasing sense of increased instability, increased dire situation on the ground, and that is going to create enormous challenge for Taliban itself.
It's a tightrope walking.
Getting worsened.
It's a tightrope walking that I think everyone needs to. I think it's a tightrope walking that everyone needs to know. Remember that United States has spoken with the Taliban, and they were short of giving them legitimacy. So is the G20 going to follow suit with that? And what does the United Nations, World Bank and the EU do in this mess? We'll wait and watch how this particular story unfolds. Thank you and appreciate you joining us, Professor Swan Singh from JNU, joining us this evening on World Today, giving us an insight especially into that G20 extraordinary meeting with Afghanistan on top of the agenda.